Hello everyone, I'm Mr. Lopez and today we're gonna learn a bunch of different paper manipulation techniques to create beautiful paper flowers. So for today's task, we're gonna need different materials. We're gonna need some kind of paper. I would suggest try different types of paper to see what works better. You're gonna need scissors. You're gonna need something to stick your paper. So PVA glue or sellotape or glue dots are really good. If you're old enough or you have a grown-up supervising you, you can use a glue gun. And if you can have access to paper straws, try to get some because they can be very useful too. You probably have noticed that there's a lot of different types of paper. There's the printer paper, there's card, there's thin card and thick card, there's white paper and off-white paper, and there's a lot of different things that you can do with it. Just the basic properties of the paper, you can cut them or rip them, you can fold them, and you can crease them. And each of these properties or each of these transformation will change how your paper feels and looks. So try experimenting with it because you can make it look very different with each of these techniques. Now, I know that it's really fun to create your own things and using your imagination to make something new, but sometimes it's easier to look at some real objects, in this case some real flowers, and try to take inspiration from there. So my suggestion is find some images first and try to duplicate some elements of the flowers so it's easier to create your own work. Now for my first example, I use one of these flowers for inspiration. I noticed that it's a big flower, it has 5 big petals, so I tried to transform this into my own version. I did 3 layers of it, each of them with 5 petals. To do that, I found round things, round objects around me, and I drew the circles to have different, to make each layer a different size. Then I marked the 5 petals on each of them. I put a small circle inside of each to make sure that I wouldn't cut all the way through there. And using a pencil, I folded the petals and I put the smaller layers on top of the bigger ones. For my second example, I used a different flower, and my idea was to try to break it down into a lot of different petals. So I drew one of them first and I folded my paper a few times, so when I cut it, I would cut 6 or I can't remember if it was 6 or 8 petals at the same time. Once I've cut them, I fold each of them individually in half to make them look more three-dimensional, to have more volume. And then I stuck them down into a circle to create the main shape. Then I cut more petals, smaller petals, to create more volume in the flower. And once I did that, I created a cone by using I did a circle. Then once you cut out your circle, you cut through the circle all the way through the half, and then you take one side and you overlap it to the other, and you put some glue. I used a glue dot in this case, but you can do it with PVA glue or glue gun, whatever you have. You stick one side to the other, so you create a small cone. And then by doing a fringe, which I show how to do it in here as well, I just cut a big stripe of paper and then cut it through almost all the way through. I accidentally cut part of it in the video. So I cut a lot of small stripes into this longer stripe. Then I curl it and then I stick this around the cone. Once I've done that, I put everything together, and that creates something very similar to my inspiration flower. For my third example, I use the creasing paper technique. I creased a piece of paper and I open it and I creased it again and I open it again and a few times until the paper had like a softer texture, and then I built a cone. Again, I just did a circle, cut it halfway through, then overlapped one part to the other with a tiny bit of glue, and then this creased piece of paper, I started gluing it inside the cone to create the shapes of my flower, and then with the straw I just stick the flower to the back, and then that was it, a very simple flower. For the fourth one, or numero cuatro, I did a cone, but rather than making a normal cone, once I had the structure, I went around and I cut a lot of tiny spikes in zigzag with the scissors. That way you create like tiny petals. After that, I did a small fringe, and I put the fringe inside the flower to create like all the pollen things that come out of a flower. Biology teachers, I don't know the name. And then I did a new technique. I did a coil. To do that coil, you just do a big strip of paper and then you just roll it all the way through, and I put that in the center of the flower. I did a couple of longer curls just with a big piece of paper, and then I put them and they were hanging, and that is it. And finally, for the last one, I went back to the first image that I used, and I decided to do it in a different way. This time I just drew a shape around it with 5 big petals. Then I did a cone and I cut the top of the cone to have like a smaller circle inside, like the inspiration image. And then I did a lot of small coils just by rolling pieces of paper, and then I stick them one by one, and that created the texture of the flower, and it looks very different from the one that I did first, even though it's the same image. And that's it. And that's it. I hope that you learned a lot of new paper techniques, and you've found it interesting to see how just by using paper in different ways you can create a lot of different, in this case flowers, but any different objects. If you like the video, or it's the first time that you watch me online, click on subscribe and like, because it helps. It gives me more options later on to put things for you. And that's it. I hope that this was useful. I'll try to find a video to link for origami flowers in case that's easier for you to do. I'm Mr. Lopez. Thanks for watching. Bye.